On the Florida leg of Oriana's voyage of the tropics, we visited Cape Canaveral, the Everglades and Key West. Sailing into Port Canaveral, there are good views of the world's tallest single-storey building, the Kennedy Space Center. We went straight to Cocoa Beach for a wildlife lagoon cruise around the Thousand Islands, where we hoped to see dolphins, manatees and alligators. As we sailed across the lagoon, the only sighting of manatees was smoother patches of water where they were swimming a few inches below the surface. We did see plenty of anhingas, pelicans and cormorants. On one side of the waterway are the beautiful houses of Cocoa Beach, many of which have boats moored alongside. On the other side are the Mangrove Islands. The leaves haven't turned white, they've been decorated by the birds. The Thousand Islands are in the lagoon estuary of the Indian and Banana rivers and were formed by a breach in the barrier islands caused by a storm surge. This created a maze of narrow trails and canals through natural mangrove islands. At last we got a brief glimpse of a dolphin. Then we returned to the pier and the ship to sail on to Port Everglades, the gateway to the Everglades National Park and its unique ecosystem. We started at the Everglades Holiday Park, where we queued for our airboat ride. It seemed compulsory to have your photo taken, but actually it's one of the best we've ever had. Then we boarded the airboat for our ride into Florida's River of Grass. In a tree on the opposite bank we saw an iguana. The boat set off at a leisurely pace through water lilies, reeds and mangroves. Soon the captain opened the throttle and we raced through the Everglades. When we came to an area where we were more likely to find wildlife, we slowed down and began to carefully search the banks. Eventually we found this large alligator. At the end of the ride we moved on to Flamingo Gardens, a botanical collection and wildlife sanctuary. We started with a 30-minute road train ride through the subtropical botanical gardens. Here we saw various birds and specimen trees from throughout the tropics. We left the train at the Flamingo Pond. All seemed calm and serene, until suddenly a dispute broke out. But things soon quietened down again. The ibis was wandering along the rail at the side of the pond. Don't know what he's done, but he ain't half in bother. In the free flight aviary there are a large number of injured and rescued birds, including storks, pelicans and spoonbills. There's even the odd duck or two. The aviary has a mesh roof where ibis like to rest. We were all given ice creams as we got back on the coach to return to the port, where the Goodyear blimp was doing a flyby. We sailed out of Port Everglades and arrived in Key West the following morning. It's always been a popular place for the boating fraternity, but even more so when we arrived in January just in time for the Quantum Key West Race Week. As we made our way into our berth, dozens of sailing boats were leaving the marina to line up for the start of the first race of the day. The berth is right in the thick of things in this very attractive town. It's just a short walk down the jetty to the seafront, from which we got a superb view of the ship. Immediately we came to the first of many key lime pie bakeries. I bet she wishes she really had a figure like that. Just in front of Oriana was the Silver Wind. Round the corner, past the pier and cafe, is a jet ski school. Behind this is the depot for the conch train. Sloppy Joe's Bar is an institution in Key West, but this is the new one. The original, frequented by Ernest Hemingway, is a few blocks down the street. This is a typical Key West house. In this gated community is President Truman's Little White House, Florida's only presidential museum. The red building is the Custom House Museum, with many bronze statues. A statue of the famous Kiss photograph from the end of World War II was on temporary display. At the other side of the building we took the City View trolley tour. We passed St Paul's Church and a series of traditional houses. We hopped off at White Street Pier. Key West is the last of a necklace of subtropical islands stretching 135 miles southwest from Miami into the Gulf of Mexico. Close to the pier is the Indigenous Park and Wildlife Sanctuary. Hopping back on the trolley, we came next to continental USA's southernmost point, just 90 miles from Cuba, where everyone wants to be photographed. We then drove past more historic buildings, including Hemingway's house, hidden behind a brick wall. He's rumoured to have used the lighthouse to find his way home after long sessions in the bar. Back at the trolley stop, a steel drummer was playing outside the custom house. A narrow street led past the Shipwreck Museum and souvenir shops to Mallory Square. In an evening, the square is full of buskers.
Everybody clap for Jake. Okay, can you do it? Folks, can you do it? Oh yeah!
We then walked back along the harbour front to the ship.